Farmers are finally getting their bailout. Well, at least the fourth one that's been promised to them this year that's never happened. Trump administration in the spring said, farmers, just hold on, we're going to give you $50 billion. And then it was $25 billion. And then it was a trade deal with China that was fewer soybeans than they sold last year. And now they're going to give them $12 billion. Corn farmers are down $18 billion in revenue this year. Soybean farmers are down $12 billion in revenue. Rice and cotton farmers are down $11 billion in revenue. And farming in general, in total, is down more than $50 billion in revenue this year due to Donald Trump's disastrous trade policies. And farmers across the board, no matter who they voted for, are now blaming Donald Trump for this lost revenue, reaping what they sowed because they primarily did vote for him. And they're saying, give us the trade deals you promised. Well, then you have Scott Bessent, who just divested all of his interest and shares in soybean farms in the Dakotas because there's no money to be made. A man that bought these shares, this interest, specifically to make money off them, is now getting rid of them because they're losing him money. And he says he did it because he finally needed to comply with ethics standards, but we know this administration doesn't care about ethics. So farmers, you're not getting saved by a $12 billion buyout. And a little farmer's definitely not getting it. It's only going to go to the corporations, and then just so that they can buy your farm from you.
So the administration just announced a $12 billion bailout for farmers. I am glad some farmers are going to get some help, but this isn't success. This is survival at best. This is the second bailout we've received in 24 months. We got one last December. How many times is the government going to keep throwing money at the problem without actually fixing it? Farmers don't need permanent government support. We need markets. We need customers. We need places to sell our product at prices that actually make sense. That's where the federal government should step in. Not to tell us how to run our farms or wrap us in red tape, to negotiate new markets, open up trade, build real export relationships, break down barriers, use the power of the federal government to open up doors, and then let farmers walk through it on our own. I want to be clear, the farm crisis that we're in right now, it's not really all that new. It's decades in the making, and both parties are responsible for breaking the farm economy. The real problem is that our leaders lack vision. Look, it'll be my job as your next U.S. Senator to knock down the door of any country or company that wants to buy an Arkansas-made or Arkansas-grown product. We don't want Band-Aids. We want solutions.
Most of that aid is going to cattle, corn, cotton, rice, soybean, and wheat farmers. They've been hit especially hard by the president's tariff policy that's designed to boost American manufacturing production, but has led other countries, especially China, to retaliate by not buying American goods. The president insists China and Japan are now on track to buy tens of billions of dollars in soybeans in the coming years. There have been concerns that those purchases aren't moving fast enough for that key American crop to turn a profit. The new aid package is set to be paid out in the coming months by an Agriculture Department assistance program, and it's an acknowledgement by the White House that the tariffs are hurting farmers who live primarily in states that widely back the president. As we head into a midterm election year, polls continue to show the president's handling of the economy earning poor marks. Look at that slide, down to 36% approval in our most recent CBS News poll. That's partly why he's headed out on the road today to Pennsylvania to start addressing concerns about affordability. He said over the last 2 weeks that concerns about affordability are a hoax. On Monday, though, he said Democrats are to blame for higher costs, to preview perhaps of what we might hear a little later today.
The Trump administration's decision to allocate a $12 billion aid package to support farmers affected by trade tensions has sparked a widespread debate across the country. Well,
we love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me because based on voting trends. You could call it voting trends or anything else, but they're great people. They're the backbone of our country.
Supporters viewed the bailout as a necessary measure to protect agriculture communities facing economic strain, while critics argued that it placed an undue burden on taxpayers and disproportionately benefited farmers who largely backed Trump. Well, the move intensified national conversations about the trade policy, government spending, and the fairness of using public funds to offset the consequences of tariff-driven disruptions. I want to know your thoughts, and I'm waiting for you in the comment section. Tell me what you think.
Are you kidding me? We're bailing out farmers? Why? Why? Farmers voted 80% for Donald Trump. 80%. Even though they knew the effects of tariffs from the last Trump administration. The China tariffs then hurt farmers badly, and there was a bailout for 20 some odd billion dollars back then. So they knew what they were voting for this time around, because Trump was promising those tariffs and more this time around, right? They got exactly what they voted for. So I don't understand why we're doing this bailout. That is maddening. And the real kicker is the Trump administration cut $3 billion in food programs earlier this year, remember? Not only with USAID, we were sending $2 billion worth of food overseas to, poorer countries, new markets for these farmers. So we cut that, and then there was another $1 billion for schools and local food banks that kept fresh farm-grown food in the communities that they were grown in and gave healthier lunches to school kids and healthier food on food pantry shelves. We cut that $3 billion and then turn around and write a check to farmers for 4 times as much money, but don't get any food in return this time around. Make that make sense. The worst part about this bailout, there's no end in sight. It's not attached to any change in policy that is going to solve this problem. The tariffs will still continue into next year as far as we know right now. Are we going to bail them out again next year? It's a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, and we're not doing anything to fix the wound. Taxpayers are going to be on the hook again. Of course, it's not as much as we gave Argentina for nothing. This administration's economic policies are a joke.
Donald Trump announced a $12 billion handout to farmers because Donald Trump's tariffs crushed farming in America, all while giving Argentina a boost. What happened to America first? This is like Donald Trump setting their farms on fire, then charging us and them to put those fires out. A 12-year-old can do a better job fiscally at running this country, and that's it.
How is Trump president and don't understand how tariffs works? He's the president, right? So therefore he should know how the tariffs work. He announced yesterday during his roundtable that he is putting together a $12 billion bailout package for the farmers, brought in by billions of dollars from tariffs, which that is a complete lie, because I do not for 1 second believe that the U.S. has brought in billions of dollars from tariffs. Once again, they are being bailed out by the U.S. taxpayers' dollars. Who does he think believe this stuff? A problem that he caused with these trade wars, once again, is falling on the laps of American citizens. But he's too dumb and don't understand how tariffs work. Weird.
So the Trump administration is now proposing a $12 billion aid package to American farmers. Yeah, the same farmers that voted for this, the same farmers that went bankrupt under this man in 2018, the same farmers that have struggled under every Republican administration since Ronald Reagan. Yeah, that whole thing, Farm Aid, had to come about because of Ronald Reagan. The entire state of Arkansas has voted red, and they can't sell a singular crop for less than a negative $100 loss per acre. And I swear to God, if one single Democrat votes for this aid package for Republican farmers, I'm done. Because you guys will never bail out regular people to this extent. You don't care about the mom working 3 jobs just trying to survive and put food on the table. You don't care about the disabled, the sick, the elderly. But you care about the farmers who have been living off government subsidies their entire lives and yet voted against their own best interest. Let them live with their vote. You know, all I get told is elections have consequences. Yeah, unless you're a Republican, because Republicans will do everything to help Republicans, and then centrist Democrats will do anything they can to help Republicans. Make sure you are calling your representatives and your state senators to say no. No bailout of any Republican.
Hello again, friends. It's another segment of What's Bothering Lauren Today. And if you said $12 billion of taxpayer money going to farmers to pay for Trump's bogus tariff policy, you would be correct. That's exactly what's got me upset, because I know that this $12 billion isn't going to go to the mom and pop farmers who are seeing record numbers of bankruptcies. No, this is going to go to the corporate farmers. Yes, the corporations, yet again, the landowners, not the people who actually are working the land, but the corporations that own the land that is doing the producing. They're going to get this money. And this is already on top of the $20 billion that Trump has given to Argentina who stole the soybean market from the U.S. farmers in the first place. Yes, yes. Of course, there's socialism for me and rugged individualism for thee. That is how this administration is handling and going about business. So there's never enough money to give you health care. There's not enough money to make sure your children go to good schools. No, no, no. But to just pay for my bogus tariff policy, we give billions of dollars. Billions of dollars of your money. Think about that.
What I'm about to say only applies to the farmers who voted for Donald Trump and continue to vote Republican. If you didn't vote that way and you're a farmer, this doesn't apply to you. Friends, for months, we watched farmer after farmer after farmer press record on these apps and complain about how this isn't what they voted for, about how their equipment was getting repossessed, how their fields were getting tilled under, how they had to store their soybeans in their silos because they don't have sales. Hundreds of farmers interviewed complaining about this administration. And then people in that whole community of red hats in the South complaining that children were getting $6 a day for SNAP benefits, calling it a socialist handout. Not my tax dollars, not my job to feed those kids. Well, it's not my job to give you a $12 billion bailout, but it's happening, isn't it? Well, here's my hope, friends. I hope that it comes too late for most of these farmers. I hope that you've already lost your house and your farm. I hope that your equipment's already repossessed. Because that's the only way that people like you will ever learn to stop voting for billionaires who don't give a shit about the American people. Not a single shit. Where's the bailout for the hundreds of thousands of Americans who lost their jobs because of this man, whose factories have gone under, whose small farms are already shuttered up? Where's their bailout? Where's the bailout for the American people who are being squeezed for every last penny they have from everybody who wants money from us? Groceries skyrocketing, energy bills skyrocketing, gas skyrocketing, insurance rates, rent, colleges getting more and more unaffordable because of this administration. Where's our bailout? But I bet we won't get one because save the farms, I guess. You're all hypocrites. You're all disgusting, vile hypocrites. I hope one thing, that you never forget the fear that you felt when you couldn't pay your bills, when you nearly lost your farm, what that felt like. Because there are millions of Americans who have to live their life every day feeling that very same fear, and they don't get a socialist bailout the way that you do.
Stop. You're telling me that we are bailing out farmers with a $12 billion package? Are you kidding me? They voted for what they wanted. They voted for what they knew was going to happen. I mean, why should we have to bail them out when they chose that life, when they chose that career? No one forced them to. This is socialism. They don't like that. No, what's the difference? What is the to know that we can help our own and we can bail out people with crippling student debt is mind-boggling to me, because the same generation for years told us that we have to go to school, college, all that stuff, and if we don't, we're not going to get a high-paying job, which look at the state of the world now. All that studying for what? $15 an hour? Cool. Which is not even meeting the cost of living. But then when they ask for help, you guys yell and cry that that's socialism. You chose that life. That's your fault. What about this situation? What about this right now? The farmers are in no different position. They chose that lifestyle. They chose that career, and they voted exactly for what they wanted. And this is what they got. And now they're getting a free socialist bailout.
Once again, Trump has created a problem that only he can solve. And add in a little, haven't we been here before? And we get farmers on the brink of bankruptcy. And it's looking real 2018 around here. And just like in 2018, another $12 billion farmer bailout has been announced due to the trade war he reignited once he took office earlier this year. Due to this one-sided beef, cost of beef has increased and American farmers, just like in 2018, have been unable to sell their soybeans, soy gum, wheat, and more, leaving them with a surplus of crops and empty pockets. Anywho, the parallels here are glaring, and the concern is that once again, Black farmers will be left out of receiving the direct payments. Studies show Black farmers receive far less in direct payments compared to white farmers during the first Trump administration. Here's the math. During Trump's first term, big farms, mostly white owned, got the biggest checks. Smaller Black owned farms growing fruits, vegetables, or even raising livestock were left behind. Via the Market Facilitation Program, only 0.5% of direct payments went to Black farmers. And with the coronavirus food assistance program, white farmers on average receive payments of $3,398, while Black farmers only received about $422. That's not just a disparity, it's the legacy of land loss, discrimination, and USDA bias rooted into our system. So let's not forget, this farmer bailout is the result of another problem Trump has created and is again pretending to solve. And although this time new rules are promised, history tells us who cashes in and who's left out. Let me know what you think in the comments.
We're seeing more evidence today that this administration's economic plans just don't work, that the tariffs that Trump keeps imposing are causing real harms to Americans. New reporting out of the AP is stating from an anonymous source that Donald Trump plans to unveil a $12 billion aid package for American farmers later this afternoon. Farmers have been struggling since Trump took over because of the trade war that he's starting. China has been raising tariffs on U.S. imported goods into their country, which hurts U.S. farmers. Some of the biggest markets for U.S. farmers have been places like China. That's where a lot of our soybean production goes to, is to China. And since China is reacting to what Trump is doing and raising tariffs on imports from the United States into their country, it is hurting farmers tremendously. They have been struggling since Donald Trump took over. And this is something that he's done in the past. This is the exact same thing that happened in 2018. He raised tariffs on China, and China retaliated in turn, and it hurt U.S. farmers. So he had to go bail them out. He is trying to pretend like he's solving a problem when he's the reason the problem exists. I'm sure when he talks about it later this afternoon, he's going to go on and on about how the Democrats would never do something like this, and it's all the Democrats' fault, because that's the only thing he has. He can't admit that he made a mistake with the tariffs, and that they are the reason that American farmers are hurting, so he has to point the blame at somebody else. He always is going to go back to blaming either Biden or the Democrats. But let it not be forgotten that the reason that these farmers are needing a bailout is because of what Donald Trump is doing. And they're not going to get as much as they would if they still had access to those foreign markets. This is the exact same thing that happened in the last term. The bailout that he gave to farmers was not as much as they were making when they had access to those foreign markets. It hurt them detrimentally, even though they were getting money from the government. And this is going to be the exact same thing that happens now. It's going to end up costing the government more to give these farmers enough money so that they can make up the losses that they're having from losing these foreign markets. It's not an effective economic strategy. It's never been an effective economic strategy, and we're just seeing exactly how harmful this economic strategy actually is when he has to do these bailouts like this, because they cannot survive if he does not intervene to mitigate the problem that he created.
Hey, quick question. Why do we, the taxpayers, keep having to bail out farmers who choose to vote for Donald Trump and his disastrous policies every single time? You may have seen this lovely headline in Politico today or heard of it elsewhere. White House to announce a $12 billion farmer bailout package. Where have we heard this before, you might ask? Oh, that's right, in Politico in 2018, when Donald Trump's policies, tariff policies, surprise, surprise, harmed farmers, and he used our tax dollars to bail them out to the tune of $12 billion. Literally everyone said this would happen, and farmers voted for him anyway, and now they are suffering as a result of his disastrous tariff policies. And the tariff policies aren't only harming the farmers that voted for him, they're harming the farmers that didn't vote for him. They're harming small business owners. They're harming everyday consumers and the cost of goods that they are buying. And what is the response? To then take more money from us, our hard-earned tax dollars, and give them to farmers to bail them out. What about everybody else? Where is everyone else's bailout for the harmful tariff policies that Donald Trump has again enacted? Oh my God.
My favorite part about us giving farmers a $12 billion bailout is we wouldn't have to do that if we hadn't set up a bunch of fucking international tariffs that caused them to lose all their customers. And now we get to pay back the money that they were already making to them through our own pockets from buying random shit on the internet that now has a fucking tariff! It's the dumbest problem. We made our own problem, and we're gonna fix it by putting our own money into fixing something that was already working. But don't worry, the media is not gonna say fucking shit. They're just gonna sit there in their cuck chairs and be like, oh, Mr. President, where is the $12 billion gonna be funded from? Oh, from a portion of our tariff revenue. Very interesting. Do you think that maybe we wouldn't have to do that if... Okay, I'll be quiet now. Thank you for giving us this announcement. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about this. Donald Trump said today that he's offering a $12 billion bailout to US farmers. Now, before we go into this, there would not need to be a bailout without Donald Trump's policies. Donald Trump's policies has caused stress, travesty, and tragedy for US agriculture because, firstly, tariffs. So now Donald Trump is paying back the money that US farmers paid in tariffs. So he's given them back a part of the money they've already paid. So $12 billion, I'm sure there's lots of celebration in the White House. Donald Trump is patting himself on the back like he does, and he does very good at that. And there's people around him saying, the farmers are very happy. Well, let's just look at a few things here. Corn farmers have lost. Just corn. Okay? Since Donald Trump took office, $16 billion. Soybean farmers, since Donald Trump took office, have lost $11 billion. Cotton and rice producers, since Donald Trump took office, have so far lost $18 billion. And I've mentioned three industries, three areas there. That doesn't take into consideration 30 other farming and ranching operations and industries which are suffering under Donald Trump's policies. $12 billion is a drop in the ocean of what is needed to help sustain the US agricultural industry. And there's one final thing that you need to remember here. Because of Donald Trump's policies and aggression and tariffs, the whole world is now boycotting American produce, American meat, and American agriculture. Remember that. Folks, the source for this is the USDA. My name is Nick. Let me know what you think about this in the comments.
President Trump just announced he is bailing out Americans who are struggling with tariffs to the tune of about $12 billion. But that money is probably not going to you.
And we're going to be giving and providing it to the farmers in economic assistance. And we love our farmers. And, you know, the farmers like me, because, you know, based on voting trends, you could call it voting trends or anything else, but this relief will provide much needed certainty to farmers as they get this year's harvest to market and look ahead to next year's crops.
President Trump and his administration announced he wants to give a one-time payment through the Department of Agriculture's Bridge Assistance Program to struggling farmers dealing with his tariffs and the trade war and inflation and the cost of living, which, of course, we're all struggling with. The Trump plan is to first distribute $11 billion by the end of February 2026 to farmers who produce what are known as row crops, things like corn and cotton and soybeans and rice. The other $1 billion is being withheld to distribute at a later time to other farmers who grow specialty crops. So you're probably thinking, well, if these farmers are going to get this multi-billion-dollar bailout, surely that money is going to help them lower the price of their crops. So our grocery prices will go down too, right? Right?
With this aid package, I assume that that's something you want consumers to see before midterms next year? How quickly will that affect prices at the grocery store?
Well, I think the prices are going to be going down already. I mean, the prices are way down. We brought prices way down from what it was. We inherited high prices. We inherited the biggest inflation in the history of our country. That means prices going up. And we brought it down very substantially. Now inflation is essentially gone. We have it normalized.
So, according to the president, your grocery prices are already down. Problem solved. While Trump didn't specifically answer the question, according to today's announcement from the Ag Department, there is no requirement of farmers to reduce their crop prices in order to receive this bailout money. It's just money so they can keep farming. Now, there are a couple of issues with this bailout. One, generally, big bailouts, especially billions of dollars in bailouts like this, usually need to be approved by Congress. The president can't just hand out money like this. But the Trump administration says they are using existing authorities to distribute this bailout using the money they have collected from tariffs. Right, the same thing that is probably also causing the problem. Now, whether Congress steps in or the courts step in with this, we're going to have to wait and see. Plus, of course, the Supreme Court is still going to decide on whether Trump's tariffs are even legal in the first place, and that will also play a role in whether or not this farmer bailout actually happens. The other issue with this is, as I said, Trump's tariffs, and more importantly, the trade war that he started when he came back into office. Those things in particular are what most recently has led farmers to really struggle, with some of them having to declare bankruptcy and some even losing their farms. Now, that's not to say that farmers weren't struggling before. They absolutely were. But when tariffs hit, China immediately stopped buying U.S. crops, including one of the biggest, soybeans, which directly and significantly impacts soybean farmers in the United States. Soybean farmers normally export like half of their crop. And if China isn't buying, then those farmers are losing. But today, the president didn't mention his tariffs or his trade war once as a possible reason why these farmers need $12 billion. He blamed something else.
Unfortunately, under sleepy Joe Biden, he's a sleepy guy. Our farmers were crushed by the worst inflation in modern history and crippling restrictions on energy, water, and countless other necessities for farmers. And what they did to the farmer in terms of putting the brakes on was just absolutely unacceptable.
As I already mentioned, inflation definitely hurt farmers back then, as it does now. But inflation hurt all of us. And we know Trump's trade war and tariffs are currently the specific problem that farmers are dealing with. While Trump didn't acknowledge that today, his agriculture department did. In the actual announcement of today's bailout, it says this is being done in response to temporary trade market disruptions and increased production costs. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the fact that for most of the last month, President Trump has been saying that the affordability crisis affecting just about all of us is a hoax. But if he's bailing out farmers to the tune of $12 billion, then maybe he's starting to realize that it's actually not a hoax. And this trade war may actually be impacting the pocketbooks specifically of his voters.
Just a reminder that the $12 billion bailout that Trump's about to give to farmers isn't some mom and pop operation with some chickens and a single cow. It's all multi-millionaires. Every single farmer out there is someone that has land that's fertile and worth millions of dollars that they can sell if things get bad at any point. They have millions of dollars worth of equipment that they can sell to get money at any point. Every single farmer who takes $1 of this bailout is a rich person who's going to be allowed to stay rich and hold on to their rich assets. And so they'll get to keep price gouging us on food so our grocery trips suck and we get less bang for our buck. Thanks.
Happening right now at the White House, President Trump is hosting a roundtable discussion with farmers. He announced a new $12 billion aid package to help farmers who are struggling because of his trade war with China. Joining us, Arkansas soybean farmer Scott Brown. Scott, really good to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Katie.
$12 billion. How's that sound to you?
Well, I appreciate the help, but it's a far cry from what we need. Just the loss in corn this year with a record crop was over 16 billion. The loss in soybeans at production is around 11 billion. That doesn't count cotton and rice, which are even bigger losses than that.
So this $12 billion is not going to make up for this 1 year. I mean, say China goes back to buying soybeans and other crops as they were buying before this trade war. Is $12 billion not enough to bridge that gap?
Probably not. You've got a lot of boys that's got $400,000 to $700,000 worth of rollover debt that's eat their equity up in the last 2.5 years. They don't have anywhere to go. They don't have anything to do, and you've got guys that are not going to take that ground. So if you don't make everybody whole and let everybody stand on their own 2 feet and get off this hamster wheel of government aid, which is what we all want. The taxpayer wants it. We want it. Everybody wants it. You need to square everybody up. Senator Moran even said it was a $40 billion problem. So, I mean, his own senator says $40 billion, and what's he come up with? $12 billion.
The Trump presidency, another bailout for farmers. The White House today will announce a $12 billion aid package for farmers. The only reason for this is the trade war with China. They say again because in Trump 1, they got about $28 billion of socialism. Farmers keep electing Trump because of pure, utter racism. Correct? Correct. Because it's not about the economy. They saw it after the economy in Trump 1, $28 billion. Trump 2, have to get bailed out again with socialism. Almost like Trump is terrible for the economy. It's almost like the only reason they vote for Trump is because of the racism. Huh. Can't wait to see what kind of fucking bailout package we're going to have to give these AI companies eventually.
President Trump's announced a $12 billion aid package to farmers struggling from the devastating effects of his tariffs. Farm bankruptcies rose by nearly 50% this year compared to last. President Trump's tariffs on China cut its imports of U.S. soybeans to zero before a deal was reached in October. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon criticized the bailout for farmers, saying, quote, "Instead of proposing government handouts, Donald Trump should end his destructive tariff spree so American farmers can compete and win on a level playing field," he said.
Hey, y'all. It's still Tuesday. It's about 12:30 Eastern Time. And this is Gigi Brad Reports. I'm Gigi. All right, y'all. Let's get into it. First of all, Commodity 77 came over last night. He fixed all the lights. Thank you to you. The outside, we're doing good. Still need 2 more extension cords, and I got electrocuted. No, I did. So, that was fun. All right, now, we have a whole bunch of news, so let's get into it. The Honduran president, the one that Trump just pardoned, well, Honduras has just issued an arrest warrant for him. Feliz Navidad to you, senor. All right, next, icebox. No, that's the kind of thing that you used to put your food in when you know, way back in the day. They report where there's ICE activity. And they're suing the Trump administration because they're saying Trump's administration said they can't do that anymore. They can't alert people, let them know where ICE is. Why not? They say, why not? Because Waze, you use that to get places. They can tell you when there's a cop up ahead. Thank you, Waze. So why can't they? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they're racist. Not Waze. Trump administration, allegedly, supposedly, according to me. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, the Supreme Court seems like they are readying themselves to give Trump more power. We're not shocked. We discussed this. I think they're our biggest issue. So, what's going to happen? Not really sure. But I do know this. It's probably not good. They are probably going to say he can fire whoever he wants to fire without cause in all the independent agencies. Not good. All right. Next. I told you we have a lot, and we do. Ukraine. Ukraine says they are not going to give up land to Russia. Go you. In any peace deal that the U.S. and Putin have come up with. Trump says, well, they're losing, so they better. So we're going to see what happens with that. All right. Next, the Supreme Court is about to hear a case about a cap on campaign funding. Now, we want there to be a cap. Why? Because if rich folks can donate and multi-billion businesses and such can do that, then that leads to corruption. Duh. I ain't even a mathematician, or I'm not even good about economics. But I know politics. And that is no bueno. Sorry. It's lunchtime for the Redsky. Can you hear him? He's thirsty. All right. What else do I have? Okay. Here's one. It has been statistically shown that most farmers, not all, supported Trump. And guess what now? They're getting $12 billion in a bailout. Now, we need to eat. We want them to do well. We all need food. But do you know what? Sometimes you gotta hurt. You gotta feel the pain of your poor choices. And I don't want to bail you out. You know why? You voted for him, which means you support a lot of his policies that hurt a whole lot of other people. And you don't really care about them. So I ain't about helping you. Now, if that means that the price of my groceries go up or there's less of them, see, I'm willing to take that hit because my moral compass is straight. All right, but that's just me. Now, I'm going to walk and talk because I got to move over here to grab the rest of the stuff because I want to make sure, because I'm going to have to read this. I got to make sure that I get it right. It's about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. From the beautiful state of Georgia, my lovely home. She was on CNN. Why? Well, because Fox don't have her. Yeah, well, you know, you kind of earned that. Marjorie had some things to say about Trump. Now, I want to quote what she said about her ex-best friend. Her ex-bestie. Mommy and Daddy are fighting. The divorce is getting ugly. Who's going to get the kids? The constituents. All right, she said, Trump is constantly so hateful. Poor leadership. Very bad demeanor. He's extremely unkind. And that Trump is responsible for the hate speech. Marjorie, where the hell have you been? Ain't it funny? Ain't it funny? Marjorie. That, none of that, because all that's been true, but none of that mattered to you when he was doing it to the rest of us. It only matters now that he's doing it to you. Now, to be fair, her son got a terrible death threat, which is deplorable. I think he's 22 years old. It doesn't even matter how old he is. That's just ridiculous. Should not even happen. And she's afraid. And she's getting a lot of threats since she's come out against him. This is my issue. The things that you're accusing him of, Miss Marjorie, you didn't give a flip about when it cared to the other half of Georgia that didn't vote for him. You see what I'm going? You see where I'm going with this, Marjorie? Now, Marjorie, I live in Dawson County. Spent a whole lot of time up in Talking Rock. I'm red. But you flipped the flop, and you only did it to serve you and yours, not the rest of us. So, well, I'm going to pray for you because it's the Christian thing to do. I don't believe in you. So, bye-bye, Marjorie. All right, that's what I have for you. All right, heart this, like this, and repost it. So folks know the truth. Because I only give it to you. Just like that. And follow me. I'll follow you back. And at some point, I'll show you the light situation that Kubota helped me with. And I'm getting a lot of comments and a lot of private messages. Where is Kubota? Where's Kubota been? Kubota 77. Why y'all aren't dancing no more? Mom and Dad didn't break up. I mean, you know, we're not like that, but we're still like that. It's just that he's taking a break from that because he's got a lot of other stuff going on. But, wink, I appreciate you asking for him, and I know he does. And I'm going to get him back out on that dance floor, a.k.a. living room floor, very soon. If it's the last thing I do, because it makes us happy. But right now, we're just going to gather around him, give him a big hug, and let him do what he needs to do. All right. Thanks, y'all. That's it. Come back later about 4:35, and I'll give you more of this. Bye.
The aid announced by the Trump administration to help farmers is being criticized as a political tactic aimed at winning rural votes rather than actually addressing any sort of systemic issues in agriculture. The plan also has the potential to entrench corporate farming business interests rather than supporting small farms, while also using taxpayer money to do so. The aid highlights Trump's hypocrisy on tariffs. He imposed trade wars that hurt farmers in the first place, then used taxpayer-funded payouts to patch over the damage that he created and then frame himself as their defender.
So you've probably heard about this $12 billion bailout that Trump has offered to farmers. Let's put that into context. In 2025, it's estimated that the farming industry is going to lose about $44 billion because of tariffs that Trump has put out. The historic high or the 10-year historic high for bankruptcies was in 2019 under Trump, which was 599 bankruptcies. Under Biden, it got down to 139. This year, it's expected to go up somewhere to 662, I believe. It's going to go up. So it's going to set the next high since Trump at 599. And he's giving them $12 billion. How the fuck does that help all of the people who have been bankrupt, all these farmers who have been bankrupt, right? He's taken a sledgehammer to the farming industry in 2019, pre-COVID, and now setting a 10-year high with farmer bankruptcies. But he's going to give them $12 billion, which is $8 billion less than what he gave to Argentina, which is a competitor to American farmers. 40 billion. Isn't it 40 billion? 40 billion. But he's going to give farmers in the United States $12 billion, which won't help for jack shit the bankruptcies, the bankrupt farmers who are already out of business, and won't do a hell of a lot for the rest of them. That money goes straight through to the debts that they're owed, which, by the way, are to fewer and fewer companies who have been jacking up prices over the last 10 years as well. So when you hear him come out and say, I'm going to rescue the American farmer and give them $12 billion, that doesn't do jack shit. Like, they wouldn't even need that if it weren't for tariffs. That's a quarter of what he took from farmers. And he's giving back a little to some of them who are still in business after we're about to set another historic high for bankruptcies. Historic high. We got down to 139 under Biden. And he can blame Biden for all of these problems, but it never actually works out where that's the truth, right? It's always Biden's fault as he screws over industry after industry. So, I mean, if you're an American farmer, if you know American farmers, like, let them know. Like, just go look at the damn data. A lot of them already do. A lot of them are pissed right now because it's a slap in the face. There's an article about that, talking to farmers. And these are all red states with red senators and red governors who have supported Trump and everything he's done. They didn't push back on tariffs. They didn't push back, when all these bankruptcies were happening, not even in 2019. Again, 599. They didn't push back then. So if you're an American farmer, like, just be aware that it's the Republican politicians who are taking your damn farms and taking your money. And then where are those farms going, right? Probably to Acre Trader. So JD Vance and the Saudis are making a shit ton of money and probably buying up all these farms. And if you're an investigative reporter or you know about that, like, please let me know. Because where are those farms going? All these bankruptcies. Who are buying those farms? They're putting American farmers out of business. And that is a quantifiable trend. So yeah, American farmers, like, the Republican Party is not the way to...
The American farmer is in an economic and financial crisis, and it's solely because of President Trump's actions. This last year, farm bankruptcies rose by 55%. Again, this isn't a plague. This isn't because Americans have changed their eating habits or Europeans have changed their eating habits. It's because he instituted a trade war with China that raised cost on the farmer, and the Chinese retaliated and decided they weren't going to buy soybeans or other agricultural goods. And then those taxes that were on the American consumer, which are a direct result from Trump's tariffs, are now being used to then bail out the farmer. It makes no sense economically. And let's also be clear, farmers do not want a bailout. They want to be able to sell their own crops and make a living.
So supposedly we're supposed to get another farmer aid package in the next few weeks. Does it sound like a theme? 2 weeks? 2 weeks. Anyway, Brooke Rollins came out and said that the Trump administration expects to announce an aid package for U.S. farmers within 2 weeks and a deal on Chinese soybean purchases. American Farm Bureau Federation said on Monday that the aid is urgently needed as farmers face compounding pressures from higher input costs and lowering commodity prices. Back when Trump was talking with Xi or Z, or I don't even know how to say the Chinese president's name, I'm sorry. Supposedly China agreed to buy 12 million metric tons through January. Now keep in mind, we were still expecting them to make some type of purchase in that neighborhood, probably in January. From what I have seen, they've bought about 2 million metric tons, so we got 10 million metric ton to go. So those December and January purchases better ramp up because we've been dealing with this for 2 months now, or almost 2 months, October and November. Here's the problem with these types of packages. Farmers do need this for cash flow, but overall, we understand as economists, and even the farmers for the most part understand, that these aid packages come with a cost. That cost being the fact that inputs are going to remain high. The problem is not necessarily just that farmers are kind of relying on these ad hoc payments, but we also have an industry that is relying on this. Most of these payments and these aid packages are going to help farmers cash flow just so they can pay bills. And who are the receivers of those bills? It's big ag. It's big ag corporations. It's the input suppliers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to subsidizing certain things. I'm not opposed to providing programs that help economic growth, but we have to be very tactful in how we present these programs because right now we're kind of slapping a Band-Aid on a deep wound that needs stitches. We need true economic growth, and market support for farm commodities. That doesn't necessarily just come in the package of a farmer aid package and a direct payment. We saw it happen in the first administration with the $28.5 billion market facilitation payment, which was basically saying, hey, sorry I screwed up your markets with my tariffs. And now we're seeing that again. So my projection is as this aid package comes out, we're going to keep farms afloat another year, but we're still going to be fighting higher input costs and low commodity costs next year if we do not do something more significant than just putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound.
Farmers are getting a bailout. The Trump administration announced a $12 billion assistance package with the money beginning to flow in the coming months. They say that farmers will start getting this assistance by February. It will apply to any farmer that makes $900,000 a year or less, and the assistance will be capped at $155,000 per farm or per entity. Of course, Minnesota is one of the top agricultural exporters in the country, especially when it comes to soybeans. Now, the Minnesota Farmers Union told us today that they, of course, welcome the aid, that it will help in some ways, but they called it frustrating, saying they believe this was inflicted by the president's own tariff policies, and they say there's still a lot of uncertainty and chaos in the market. After several months of not buying U.S. soybeans, China, the world's largest market, agreed to resume those purchases this fall.
The U.S. government says that they're interested in some sort of bailout package for farmers here in the U.S., but there are a lot of factors at play here. One, of course, the big factor, tariffs. We've talked about this for some time now. The money that is being considered as part of this bailout package, well, that's being presented as this is tariff revenue. So money that the U.S. has made off of tariffs that they've imposed on other countries. Well, we've heard the stories from different producers, different farmers out there saying, well, ultimately, I'm paying those tariffs. Like if there was a part that was broken on a machine and they went and bought that part, but the part is now more expensive because of tariffs, well, that's part of the revenue. And when they go and get some sort of bailout package, essentially that money is just coming back to them. The other component, of course, where are they finding the labor? The thing is, we heard from farmers who said that early on they were promised that their work would not be impacted by some of these policies, and now they're seeing fewer and fewer people show up to the job. People who are rightfully worried that if they show up, they may be taken away. So what I'm hoping for, I want to hear from farmers, producers. I want to hear from small business owners. I want to know how all of these different policies have been impacting you. And believe me, I understand that some of these things may be tough to talk about, but I do think it's important to hear from people like you, preferably in Tennessee, because I want to try and keep it local as much as possible. And, want to have an opportunity to actually sit across from you. I want to help share what it will take to make things easier for our farmers, our producers, our small business owners, some of the most important people in helping to put food on our plate. So share this video, friends, family, whoever it might be. There's no angle. I haven't already written the story or anything like that. I think we need to do more of this, create more dialogue.
Wait. The Supreme Court has yet to decide the legality of these tariffs. And now you have Trump saying he's going to pay for this bailout with revenue from the tariffs. Mind you, farm bankruptcies are soaring this year as a direct result of Trump policies. There have been more bankruptcies in Q1 of 2025 than there were all of 2024. And it's on pace to be the most farm bankruptcies in a single year. All thanks to one Donald J. Trump. Thank you for putting America last. Thank you for buying beef from Argentina. Make Argentina great again. That's what he ran on, and that's what American farmers voted for. They are getting everything they voted for and more. And a bailout is just a Band-Aid trying to hold back a dam. It is not going to be enough. This is not solving the problem. This is just saying, I care about the farmers when you really don't give a...
So I had an interesting thing happen to me today at Walmart. Suspicious, more than interesting. But I was checking out, and I don't go to Walmart very often. I'm not a big Walmart fan, but I did today. And I checked out, and my total at the end was $108. And I went and put my card in the little reader, and I noticed that the card reader said $193. So I took it out real quick, looked at the screen. Screen said 108. Card reader said 193. Grabbed a girl. She couldn't fix it. And so she saved my transaction and checked me out on a different register. So they fixed it. It was fine. But I thought that was really odd. And I don't know if I would have ended up paying that if it actually would have gone through or not. But just be careful going through checkout this year with things. It's a little bit sketchy. Might have just been a glitch, but just something to be aware of.
I know that's right. The only people who are surprised to find out farmers are wealthy is folks living in urban areas. But bottom line, they are not the peasants from the Great Depression that you might be thinking about. They tend to be families with much better financial footing than most Americans. And so if we're worried about bankruptcy protection, we should probably just be worried about most Americans, not farmers as a special class. But speaking of farmers as a special class, that takes us to number 2. And that is how bankruptcy works different for farms than it does for everybody else. Farms get something called Chapter 12 bankruptcy. You've probably heard of Chapter 7, Chapter 11. Those are for individuals and businesses. Chapter 12 is a special kind of bankruptcy that is just for family farms and family fishermen. Chapter 12 is designed to give people a way to keep their farm or fishing business going without having to sell off their land, their boats, and their other equipment. So most of us, when we hear bankruptcy, we think losing everything. We think being forced to sell off everything you own to pay off debtors. That is not how it works for farmers and fishermen, because they have a special kind of bankruptcy that lets them not have to do that. Chapter 12 is more like hitting pause on all your debts and giving you some time to put together a repayment plan that's going to work better for you. You can sell some of your land to pay off debts under Chapter 12, but you don't have to. And if you sell land under Chapter 12, you don't have to pay capital gains taxes on it, which means you don't have to sell nearly as much of your land as you would if you had to pay taxes on it. It's a tax exemption. I'm not an accountant, but I don't think the other kinds of bankruptcy let you sell off lots and lots of assets tax-free to get out of bankruptcy. So the way Chapter 12 bankruptcy works, it's not the farm going out of business. It's a way for the farm to stay in business. It is a special kind of bankruptcy that is specially designed to make sure people don't go out of business. When you hear farms going bankrupt, most people hear you have to sell off the land. That's literally not how it works. They have a special form of bankruptcy designed to keep that from happening. That's also a special level of protection that nobody else gets besides farmers and fishermen. Now, to be able to file Chapter 12 bankruptcy and get those special protections, you have to do a couple things. You have to get half of your income and have half your debts from farming, right? If you're a dentist who happens to have a couple acres that you raise chickens on, you're not going to be able to file Chapter 12. You're not going to qualify. And I actually think that's fine. If you're going to have a special kind of bankruptcy for farmers to keep them from going out of business, it should be for people who are farming professionally. I think that's fine. But here's where it gets interesting. Chapter 12 was originally designed for small and medium-sized family farmers. All those debts you could discharge under Chapter 12 were capped at around $3 million. It grew over time, but by 2019 it was capped around $3 million. And originally, you had to be getting 80% of your income from farming, not 50%. Because what you don't want is a bunch of wealthy people just buying up farmland so they can qualify as farmers and get special bankruptcy protections. You don't want that to happen. You want to make sure this is reserved for people making their living in agriculture. So there were some restrictions on who could do it. In 2019, Donald Trump expanded those restrictions to allow a lot more rich people who just own a lot of farmland to qualify for Chapter 12 bankruptcy. And this was expected to dramatically increase the number of Chapter 12 bankruptcies. And that's exactly what happened. Chapter 12 went from being a special protection for people whose livelihoods depend on agriculture to more of a coverall for all kinds of people with a lot of wealth and happen to own some farmland, and now they can access those special protections that were meant for family farmers. And that helps explain why farm bankruptcies are on the rise. There's a lot more wealthy people now who qualify to file bankruptcy as a farmer. And as our economy is encountering problems, a lot of the people with a lot of business holdings are choosing to file under Chapter 12 just because they qualify for that now. The other change Trump made back in 2019 was instead of capping Chapter 12 bankruptcy at $3 million, it is now $11 million. That has opened the door for a lot of quite wealthy families to use Chapter 12 bankruptcy to discharge their debts when they wouldn't have qualified before. And I know the phrase $11 million worth of debt sounds shocking, but let's remember how banks work, right? They don't give out $11 million worth of loans to poor people. You have to have a lot of assets and a lot of financial capital of your own to qualify for $11 million worth of debt. So what these changes to Chapter 12 bankruptcy did was take this program that was designed to protect small and medium family farmers whose livelihoods depend on agriculture and expanded it out to a lot of people who may just be agricultural investors. Now, half of their income still has to come from agriculture, but by the time we're talking $11 million worth of capitalization, you don't even have to work on the farm anymore to be making a lot of your income from owning the farm. That's what Trump's changes to Chapter 12 did, and it might help explain a lot of the rises we're seeing in farm bankruptcy. As our economy starts to hit serious problems from labor shortage, from deportations, from trade wars, and from high interest rates, you can expect to see a lot of businesses get in trouble, and you can expect a lot of wealthy people who own businesses start to get in trouble. And now that we've expanded who qualifies for Chapter 12, that starts to look like a lot of farm bankruptcies on the rise. So what we're looking at right now is not a farm crisis, it's just a general economic crisis. I think we can certainly expect the trade wars will continue to make things worse for farms, but the impact of China not buying our soybean harvest from this fall has not even started to hit yet. We cannot blame the rise in farm bankruptcies from earlier this year on the trade war yet. That's just coming from how our economy is not doing well, period. Keep in mind for making sense of farm news, farm media literacy, if you will. The way agriculture works, there's always going to be some part of the country or some section of agriculture that's in crisis. Let me give you an example. Let's say we had a year when corn yields were really good. That means everybody had a great harvest, the weather was good, and so everybody's got a bumper crop. Well, now you've got a huge supply of corn on the market, so the price for corn is going to collapse. If something goes well and you have a good crop, that means the price is going to tumble. On the flip side, if you had a bad year, if there was a drought, if there were floods, if there was something that made a bad harvest that year, supply goes down and the price goes up. So every year you either have a good harvest or you have good prices. You can't have both. It is very, very unusual to have both a good crop and good prices. Those just don't happen at the same time. So agriculture can supply kind of an endless supply of bad news, right? Either the weather was bad or the prices are bad. There's always something bad going on. And there's also layers on top of that. If grain prices are bad, then grain farmers are sad because they're not making much money. But livestock farmers like that because they buy grain to feed to their animals. And so when grain prices are low, livestock farmers are having a good time. So no matter what happens, agriculture always has some good news and some bad news somewhere. So if you are the farm lobby and your mission is to persuade Americans that farmers are in crisis all the time, you're always going to have headlines to pull from somewhere. That's what's going on.
The Trump administration is planning to roll out a $12 billion aid package today for farmers hurt by President Donald Trump's tariffs and other economic challenges. Administration officials prepared to draw the $12 billion in bailout funds from the USDA's emergency fund months ago, even though Trump had pledged to tap tariff revenue for farmers. Farmers are expected to start receiving these funds in February at the earliest. Up to $11 billion of the package will be allocated to producers of major row crops like corn, soybeans, wheat, rice, and cotton. The rest of the money will be reserved for growers of fruits, vegetables, and other so-called specialty crops. Officials have also touted recent agreements with China and other major importers as softening the impact, though agriculture groups have expressed concern that China in particular is slow-walking promised purchases of soybeans. In a statement, Anna Kelly, the White House spokesperson, said today's announcement reflects the president's commitment to helping our farmers, who will have the support they need to bridge the gap between Biden's failures and the president's successful policies taking effect. It's funny how they keep throwing Biden's name out there when they've been in charge for the past almost year. As always, follow for more. Share the news. Captain out.
The biggest welfare queens in America are not who you think they are. I'm going to tell you who really has a standing appointment at a government ATM machine. Farmers. You know, the same people who scream socialism like it's profanity. Well, they're about to get a warm government hug in the form of what's called a bridge payment. So here's the story in plain English. A trade war got kicked off. Markets got all messed up. Crops stopped moving, money dried up, and suddenly the loudest bootstraps in America are sitting on a curb barefoot, asking the government for bus fare. Understand, your government is already expected to hand farmers $40 billion with a B in 2025. And that's not pocket change. It's actually the largest amount of money infused into the farming sector since the 90s. Farmers always claim they hate a handout. And conservatives always say struggle builds character. And the country's supposed to be all about personal responsibility. But I think that only applies to everybody else, clearly, because farmers are still begging. Farmers voted for these policies. They cheered them on. I just want to know why when the bill comes due, farmers keep running to the government begging for our tax dollars. And I want to be clear, farmers getting more money will not make your groceries cheaper. It's corporate welfare. Healthcare is still an issue. Housing is a whole joke. School debt is choking people out. But the farmers are still begging. Y'all tired of winning yet?
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.